The urgency we need now, Mr. Speaker, is providing solution the cure of COVID-19. This bill is a long-term case, not immediate cure. On that note, I am saying that we should apply the wisdom of direction. Can we circulate even this bill, even for the reasons of crossing the T's and dotting the I's of the way? I've not seen it. From the paper here, it was introduced the first reading today. We're doing the second reading, the resolution for the third reading, and what? The speed, in this speed, we may miss the direction and turn back again to seek direction. So I want to plead with colleagues, I want to plead with people of this motion. Can we use today to recirculate it, since we'll meet again by God's grace by Tuesday? Then we'll look at it, then we'll be able to see. Let me know if there are provisions that offend our human rights. We've been told that there's going to be a chip. In fact, that the vaccine is here already. So when we put in the chip, the monitors from UK, from US, what we are doing in our rooms and whatever. And now there's a portion now saying NCC will even have a right to order these things. That was why, Mr. Chair, you observed me shaking and wondering and perplexed.
The first item on our list of issues today is that of the bill before the House of Representatives, Control of Infectious Diseases Bill 2020. And to discuss this, we have a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, joining us in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, I don't know how you first of all react to the reactions, so to speak, that this bill has generated since its introduction. First of all, how did the reactions hit you?
Thank you very much for inviting me. The reaction that we are getting, honestly, is uncalled for. Why do I say so? We have procedures when we want to pass a bill to become an act. You could count up to 7 to 8 different stages for a bill to become an act. We are just at the second level, and the panic is everywhere. There is a first reading when you notify the rules and business of your intention to present a bill. They will publish it and they will give first reading. That will be followed by an invitation for you to present the bill proper for people to debate. That comes second reading. It is during that second reading that you x-ray the content of the bill, and people will make their opinion known at that level. But there is still another level. It goes to the committee, relevant committees, to look at it. In this case, House Services and House Institution. In fact, the chairman of these two committees, we are co-sponsors of this bill with the Speaker, Dr. Somunu and Dr. Pascal Obi. They are all medical doctors. At the committee level, they will look at it and then go for the next, which is public hearing. They will call for public hearing where opinions will be expressed by the public, by the experts in the field, where certain things will be, observations will be made, and certain knowledge will be gotten, and it will come back to the committee, who will compile all the details of the public hearing and bring it back to what we call committee of the whole. At the committee of the whole, we will now do clause by clause consideration. At all these points, you are entitled to say, no, this T was not well crossed, or this I was not well dotted. So there is no need to panic. And after that, it will go from that clause to clause consideration to the Senate for concurrence. Because clause to clause consideration, third reading, then the Senate for concurrence. The Senate will also have opportunity to look at what you have done and see whether they will give their concurrence or not. And then it will come back to the clerk of the National Assembly. From there, it will journey to the president. The president has his team who will now look at it finally, and he will give his assent or refuse to give his assent. And if that happens, it comes back to the House. So we are just, the bill is just commencing a journey for it to become an act. It has not even done up to 3 legs. And the panic is everywhere. And I think for some of us, it is deliberate and a little bit political. And people are depending on what is trending on social media to judge a bill. And I've also seen that most of my colleagues are now debating bills not on the floor of the National Assembly, but on television station. It ought not to be so. In the wisdom of the sponsors of the bill, which the Speaker happened to be one of them, said, okay, if we reconvene on Tuesday, we've not been around for a long time, and the House Committee on Rules and Business, who's supposed to distribute this particular bill, did not do it because of the emergency way we came back. Let us step this down. Let us look at it when you must have gotten a copy. And that is a sincere approach to issues that have been raised by a whole lot of people. Let us not, I take care of the image of the House, and when I see certain things that are supposed to happen inside the House, happening on radio stations and happening on television stations, it doesn't give us joy. We are still in the process of crossing the T's and dotting the I's of this bill. People should stop panicking. You have the right to say this clause is not supposed to be there. Okay. If it is clause 30 you're uncomfortable with, you give your reasons. And the House will vote on it. If it is clause 46 or 47 or 48, I have seen some of the write-ups and the concerns of so many people and the issue of vaccines and all the rest of them. Let us wait until we go through the...
before we go to the details, the clause by clause that you just mentioned, one of the concerns your colleagues raised, two issues. One is the fact that, well, you said that they're going to get the copies of the bill, but the fact that they didn't get the copies of the bill before the first and second reading was a concern that they raised. And one of the other issues they raised, hey, why the rush? I mean, is this bill going to kick into action before COVID-19 pandemic is over? How does it affect the immediate issues that we have? Those two issues, how do you react to them?
One, you're not supposed, no bill is circulated, no copies of bills are not circulated on first reading. Anybody who says that, I will be shocked. It's either the person doesn't understand how it operates, or the person is just deliberately trying to, ridicule the process of making a bill become an act. At the first reading, it is just a mention of the title that will be made. That is what is called the first reading, which the clerk of the House will mention that the bill on this, that, first reading. And then nothing happens there. Nothing is circulated. The second reading was just what I told you, that it's supposed to be circulated by the House Committee on Rules and Business. And knowing that we came back on Tuesday, and a lot of things they had to quickly put together because the administrative officers were at home. If you remember, most of them were not asked to be working from the office. They are working from homes. And they had to be called back urgently to put some things together to enable us sit on Tuesday. So the Speaker noticed that not everybody had a copy, and he was able to say, let's step this down. But I have also found out that, after he said that on Tuesday, between Tuesday and Wednesday, there have been a couple of different copies of this particular bill flying around. I've tried to study two of them, and I found out that one had different sections. Like, for example, in one, you have section 30 saying different thing in this particular copy, and in the other copy is saying something different. So at this stage, my point remains, it is difficult for us to debate this bill publicly at the moment. Let's wait until the owners of the bill will reintroduce the bill when we meet on Tuesday. We'll look at it clause by clause consideration and most of their concerns. If it is emanating from the bill that is in reference, that was presented by the Speaker and the two co-sponsors, we will debate it. The merit of the bill is what will make it pass through. And if it doesn't have the merit, it will not pass through. So there is no need to panic. We have a process, and that process is going to be put in place. Nobody is going to stuff it down the throat of anybody. And talking about emergency, anybody who says that COVID-19 is not an emergency situation where necessary things need to be, strengthened, legal frameworks need to be strengthened to be able to bridge the gap, the person also doesn't know what he's saying, because a law, Quarantine Act of 1926, that was only reviewed in 2004, still have gaps. You know, the infectious disease surveillance in our country is not so strong. And you need a legal framework to strengthen the agencies that are doing it. But whether what has been done in the bill is what is needed is what we will debate in the House. Whether the need is there, the need is there. We need to strengthen them. There was a confusion when the president recently relied on the Quarantine Act in making some declarations and regulations. And people were saying, no, does he have the power to do that? Is it the state that has the power? Is it the president that has the power? Some people argue that based on Section 5, 14, 20, and 46 of the Constitution, or 45 of the Constitution, the president had the right to do it. Others were saying, no, he doesn't have the right. So those are the kind of things, the ambiguities on, okay, another one was, what is the definition of the notice as defined by the Quarantine Act? What is it not ambiguous? So some of those salient issues are the things that will be addressed by this bill, but the bill will only sell on the merit of those clauses. And luckily enough, it's not the speaker that is going to sit when we are doing consideration of these clauses, clause by clause consideration. It's going to be the deputy speaker, who is the chairman when it comes to that. He will sit and go through the bills one after the other. And anyone that is not okay, we'll throw it out and take the one that will help Nigerians achieve what we're supposed to achieve based in international best practices. Let us not handle the work. It's just like lawyers. The judges will tell you, don't discuss what is before us. What we are still going through is subjudicial for you to talk on it. Wait until we finish our judgment, since it's before us. This bill is before the House. Well, let's apply the same principle. Let's stop talking about what is yet to be reviewed by the House, what's supposed to be debated by the House. There is still an opportunity for public hearing, where experts will come and lay the opinion. What is the fear all about? It's about, for me, it's a bit deliberate and political. Let's soften it and go back to the House on Tuesday. And some of us have picked up one or two things we may not be very comfortable with in the bill. We will say it. And we are not going to mince words and say, no, adjust this one. And there are some other people who have some things to say. But do we have to turn the public to become the plenary section? The answer is no.
Honorable Kalu, when you say that you've come across different, versions of this bill, one would think maybe you came across the one from Singapore, because when you compare both bills, this one for Nigeria and a similar bill from Singapore, you see they share some similarities. But, you also didn't quite answer the part where we're asking, when is the earliest time that this bill or the act will come into effect?
Is dependent on the House. First of all, when you talk about the versions I saw, I'm talking about this particular bill. I'm not talking about a bill from Singapore. The version I'm talking about is the version that somebody has been mischievous in doctrine setting sections of that particular. I saw it. Somebody brought it to my attention last night when I was going through the bills, and I saw there are two versions. So let us wait until we go back to plenary, and then we'll debate it. Now, on the issue of Singapore, people will always say plagiarism, and you copied this and you copied that. Sometimes laws are borrowed. If you find out a particular system that is effective, that is working in a particular jurisdiction, and you have similar situation, nothing stops you from saying we can apply. We can borrow this kind of thing, adjust it to meet our needs. It's allowed. Let's not delve into that. My position still remains. This bill is still in the process of becoming, passed by the House and of becoming an act. It's still a long journey to go. The element of urgency is there because of COVID, yes. But if the House says no, slow it down, we need to do one or two things, the Speaker cannot impose it on the House. The House will say, okay, let us vote on this. And the minority will always have their say. And the majority will have their way. If we get to the House and the majority said, this is urgent, we have to push on with it, adjust this, adjust that, and let's move on, that will be the position of the House. If we get there, those who have their say, no, we cannot go ahead, we have to review this, and that will be the position of the House. Okay. It is to start.
Right. So let's try to take a look at some of those clauses which you have mentioned. I mean, you said you have issues with some of them. And the 15th clause talks about isolation area. By the way, I mean, it's a very huge document. But take a look at that. That talks about isolation area, saying the minister may, for the purpose of preventing the spread or possible outbreak of an infectious disease by notification in the Gazette, declare any premises to be an isolation area. It also goes on to say the Director General may, in relation to an isolation area by written order, prohibit any person or class of persons from entering or leaving the isolation area without the permission of the Director General. Might that be a clause you're not comfortable with, maybe?
Gentlemen, like I said, the public television stations and radio station is not plenary. We must respect the dignity of the House of Representatives, the Parliament. We will not come and debate clause by clause of any bill on television until we invite the public for public hearing. We cannot do that. So I would like to be excused on that question you just raised now.
You know, Honorable
that is the clause that is...
The reason for that question is, I mean, trying to understand the thinking, you know, behind these, you know, these laws. Yes, you say that there's nothing wrong in maybe copying laws from countries that you think are doing better. But if you take a look at the Singapore law, it came at a time of Lee Kuan Yew when, you know, we understand the government at that time. So, and this is a democracy. And, you know, the question I'm trying to ask you is tied to the fact that the thinking behind this bill. You look at clause 47, then the power to order certain persons to undergo vaccination. 46 talks about the responsibility of parent or guardian. So the big picture here is what I want you to try to paint to Nigeria. What do you think is the thinking behind this bill and some of the clauses we have seen?
Thank you again. Like I said, we will not debate the bill that we're supposed to debate during plenary, you know, before television station and radio station. But I want you to know this. The misconception that is going around on issue of vaccination and no vaccination. There was a law in 1853 in England and Wales. What was that law about? That law was about universal vaccination, and it has a fine attached to it. And that law was against smallpox in 1853. I also want to assure you that today, in the United States, 50 states of the United States made it mandatory for children who want to go to public school to receive their vaccination, although 47 of that 50 states made an exceptional clause for an exception. What is the exception? The exception is on the grounds of philosophical reason or religious reason. Now you see, if you make a mandatory provision in a bill and you put an exclusion clause, and that clause says, granted that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is mandatory, but on this particular grounds of exemption, it's not supposed to be, you know, applicable to you. It covers everybody's interest. Now, these are the kind of things, if we want to begin to look at the bills before us, we'll ask ourselves, is there a need for us to put in an exclusion clause? Is there a need? As it is, every bill comes with an amendment clause, which gives you room for amendment from time to time. What is the panic about? I don't understand it. Television interviewers interviewing a parliamentarian on the clauses of a bill that has not gone through clause by clause consideration is not what is healthy for our legislation, a parliamentary practice in Nigeria. I will ask Nigerians to wait. We are going back to plenary and we are going to do what is required in the act of lawmaking.
You know, Honorable Kalu, that's understandable. That's taken, absolutely. But you know that these issues are out there. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about it. Your colleagues were on the program yesterday talking about this. So it's important to understand the thinking such that at this point where it's still in the developmental stages, people can follow through and be rightly informed, which is why it's important that we're having this conversation right now. And also, earlier on, we were asking about when the earliest time for this bill to become an act. Is it going to kick into effect during this period of COVID-19? Is that a possibility the House is looking at?
It could be, depends, like I said before, the speed of a bill is dependent both on the House and the executive. Because the stages I explained to you, when we finish our job, depending on how fast we're able to finish it, the committee involved, the relevant committee involved, the committee of the whole, how fast we're able to handle it and push it to the Senate for concurrence, and how fast the Senate is able to handle it and push it to the president for his assent. These are, the miles we have to take before we can get the bill to become an act. So the speed of it is dependent on the House, the Senate, and the executive. But whether it is time for such journey to be commenced, the answer is yes, because we have seen gaps. The Quarantine Act has gaps, which is making it difficult for the expectation that Nigerians have from NCDC, among other things, is not being gotten. You don't expect, you place something on nothing and expect it to exist. You don't expect NCDC to do magic when you have not equipped them to be able to function well. But in equipping them, the interests of Nigerians must be taken into consideration to make sure that what is coming out will not be against Nigerians, but will be for Nigerians. Because that is what the bill is all about. The bill wants to bridge the gap created by the obsolete bill. For example, every bill must have an instrument of compliance in it, every law must have an instrument of compliance in it, which serves like a sword to make people to obey it. The Quarantine Act has 200 to 500 naira as penalty. Everybody can pay 200 or 500 and distribute the disease here and there. It's one of the things that we are going to be looking at. How do we make the punitive measure more, sharp, to be able as a sword to cut through anybody who wants to disobey it. But in doing that, the provisions of the Constitution of Nigeria with regards to the fundamental rights of the citizen must be put into consideration. We cannot, in the course of making a bill to become an act, infringe on the rights of Nigerians. We will not support that.
Honorable Kalu, one of the things you told us earlier was that the point at which the clause-by-clause consideration of any bill is taken is during the second reading. But we have also been made to understand that the House went through the first and the second reading yesterday. I asked you that question the other time. The concern that many people have is the speed at which this bill was going to be passed without, in fact, some were also of the opinion that it's probably possible that the bill could have been passed for a third reading yesterday because the first and the second reading had been passed without your colleagues going through the nitty-gritty of the bill and the clause by clause that you mentioned being considered. So the speed is what is giving people concern, given some of those issues that have been raised.
Okay. I think you also got it wrong there. There is a difference between a debate during second reading and a clause-by-clause consideration at the committee of the whole. Okay? A little lecture is, first reading is the mentioning of the bill, the title of the bill, to notify the House such bill is coming up. So, if you're a good legislator, you start researching on that, especially when it has to do with the repealing of the bill and introducing new one. What you do is you begin to do your SWOT analysis on the old bill that is going to be repealed. What are the weaknesses of the bill that they want to repeal? What are the threats in the bill that they want to repeal? And the one that is coming up, you begin to look out for what are the strengths and the opportunities in the one that they are about to introduce. Will it be able to bridge the gap that have been created by the weaknesses and the threats in the old one? That is how you do it. Now, during the debate, at the second reading, that is when you come up and say, during my research, I found out that these were the gaps. And I am in support of this bill because it has 1, 2, 3, 4 strengths that will help us bridge the gap. If you are speaking for the bill, if you are speaking against the bill, you will say, when I did my research, the so-called weaknesses are not really weaknesses. The so-called gaps are not really gaps. So there is no need for this new bill coming up. So that is going to be on debate. After that debate, that particular bill will pass through second reading or will not pass through second reading, but will go from that stage to the relevant committee, because the House will rule that the bill is now referred to relevant committee. That is what you hear the Speaker say. The bill is now referred to relevant committee. At the relevant committee, the job starts again, because those who are heading the relevant committees are qualified personnel. Like in this case, the House Committee, relevant committee are the House Committee on Health Services and relevant committee, House Committee on Health Institutions. They will revisit the content of the bill and get their consultant to look at it. And one of the things they will do is to call for public hearing. The public hearing will invite people from outside to come and make input to the bill. The feedback from the public hearing will now be used to prepare a report by the consultant attached to the committee, who will now make a presentation to the committee, and the committee will present that to the House during clause-to-clause consideration. The clause-to-clause consideration is not managed by the Speaker. It is this Deputy Speaker that is in charge of it. What happens there is that the whole debate...
Before you give us the... Honorable Kalu, before you give us the rest of this lecture, just as you put it, we'll take a little break now, because you're already preparing members of the public for the House of Representatives. But we'll take more lectures after this bill. And after this break, beg your pardon. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. We still have Honorable Benjamin Kalu with us in our Abuja studio. So, Honorable, one of the issues that a number of people are also concerned about, which is why it is, we keep asking that question about how soon this bill is going to kick in and why the speed, is because, so you have told us so many of these things that have to happen before a bill becomes law. And so far, we're just wondering, if it is going on at the speed at which it is going, will it be in time enough to deal with the issues that we are contending with as far as this COVID-19 pandemic is concerned? That is why it is worrisome. If it is not going to meet the needs of this present pandemic, why the rush?
They say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. And your inability to take that step will keep that journey at 1,000 miles. But if you take one step, the journey will reduce to 999 steps. We cannot, you don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. There is no definite assurance that is ending in a month or in 2 months' time. You're not sure when the next infectious disease will hit us. Nigerians are talking as if this is the first time this particular quarantine act is being reviewed. Forgotten in 2015, the 8th Assembly considered it. And we were not able to finish it before the 8th Assembly finished. It didn't fall from the sky. There have been gaps that Nigerians notice, lawmakers notice in it. And the 8th Assembly worked on it in 2015. It sounded as if, okay, it just came up now. But the need has a reason for us to do something to be able to put a stronger legal framework, to be able to make our infectious disease surveillance in the country to be better than, it used to be. We can't do that with the Quarantine Act. We'll be deceiving ourselves. That gap that has been created has given room for a new bill to come in that will become an act. Whether it will take 1 week to do, or it will take 1 month or 1 year to do, like I said before, depends on the desire of the stakeholders, which includes the lawmakers at the lower chamber, the lawmakers at the upper chamber, as well as the executive. Because this is one government. We cannot be fast and if the executive doesn't believe that there is the need for it, they will slow it down. But would that stop us? Should that stop us from doing what we're supposed to do now? We are the people's parliament. I keep saying it over and over. We are on the side of the people. And at all times, the steps that we take, the steps that we make, they are for the interest of the people. Check what has been happening in this 9th Assembly. All the decision, all the steps taken by the leadership has been for the people. This particular bill that is coming from the Speaker and 2 other co-sponsors cannot be against the people. It cannot overnight change from being the parliament of the people, where the interest of the people is considered, to joining hands with, mere speculations of fake news. The same National Assembly that brought a bill against fake news, it is the same National Assembly now that is sponsoring fake news. And the same National Assembly wants us to depend on fake news in our lawmaking. It does not, we cannot, we work based on research, consultation with our constituents. We take feedback from our constituents, and that informs the way we act, not what appears on the pages of social media, the new media.
One more thing before we take on another issue on the burner is that, as you said, it's the democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people, as we always say. And you also tell us that the majority carries the vote, the majority have their way, the minority has their say. But it would seem like we would like to help us determine how the majority is determined in the House of Representatives, because it would seem that the last voice vote you took, it would seem like the voice of the nays were louder than the yeas, yet the yeas had it.
No. The voice of the yeas were louder than the voice of the nays. You didn't listen well. I am of the majority party. I am from APC. You were there in February when I came up with my motion to have Nigerians in China evacuated. You were there. Channel interviewed me after that. And they said no. Even members of APC said no, because they were afraid of what this corona was all about. It was strange to a lot of members. And also took some blame because I did not lobby to educate people more. But the same House listened to my motion on Tuesday. Evacuation was there as one of the prayers. The same House that said no, have a better understanding of what I was talking about, they now said yes. That is an unbiased setting. The Speaker is of the same party with me. When the House says no, he tried to convince the House. The House said no. He put the gavel down and said, this is the position of the House. And that is integrity in leadership. It was not forced down the throat of the House. So I want you to believe in our voice votes, whether it is electronic vote or voice vote. The leadership of the House will never toe the line of, converting naysayers to I-sayers. No. If it is no, it is no. If it is yes, it is yes. I use myself as an example. So you did not listen well. If you listen well, you will know that the yes will always have it and the no will not have it.
We'll play that report for you in a moment. But, just to also get the picture, the big picture here, we understand, the need to empower the NCDC at a time like this and in case this happens in the future. But we don't want to lose sight, of the spirit behind the bill, what this bill is going to do. And we appreciate that you're saying yet again that, all the ideas will be brought together to produce a bill that will be representative of the views of people based on facts. Definitely. And, a lot of issues have come up in the House of recent. We understand that, yes, there was an economic stimulus bill, the first one, and then there are works on the second one. Can you bring us up to speed briefly, before we bring you that report, bring us up to speed on the state of those bills and where they are right now, what we hope to expect in the coming days?
Okay, on the economic stimulus bill, we saw the need that Nigerians needed that intervention, that legislative intervention. And because that bill addressed the core needs of Nigerians, to make sure their work is secured, to make sure those who are paying mortgages, that there is a moratorium and all the rest of them, to make sure also there is opportunity to bring in this PPE that everybody's asking, to reduce the bottlenecks and importing them and all that. So that is what that bill is all about. And,
okay, Honorable Kalu, just a moment, pardon me, I would let you land, but let's take a look at that report together and just listen to that voice vote. Let's see which one had the highest volume. Is it the yeas or the nays? Let's do that together right now.
Almost every lawmaker is wearing a mask. One is even wearing a visor. The questionable deaths in Kano State gained the attention of lawmakers, as raised by the leader of the House, who is also from Kano.
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid the way we are going in Kano, if care is not taken, the ravages we are undergoing may be worse than Boko Haram.
The only bill up for consideration is for an act to repeal the Quarantine Act of 2004, which the Speaker, who is also the sponsor, says is outdated.
This bill allows the NCDC to be proactive, to investigate, e.g. epidemiological investigations and surveillance propaganda programs.
I have seen the title of the bill. I have not seen the bill, the content. I was shocked when one of the content of the bill will be giving NCDC or whatever they're called the right to do certain things. We've been told that there's going to be a chip. In fact, that the vaccine is here already. So when we put in the chip, the monitors from UK, from US, what we are doing in our rooms and whatever. And now there's a portion now saying NCDC will even have a right to order these things. That was why, Mr. Chair, you observed me shaking and wondering and perplexed.
The bill scales second reading despite the huge dissenting voices.
The question now is that the bill brings second. Those people say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
So, Honorable Kalu, do you still think the yeas had a louder voice vote compared to the nays?
It depends on what you call louder voice. The number of votes is not dependent on the pitch of who screamed nah. That is not what we use in determining it. It's the volume of the years. I can say yeah without shouting yeah.
Okay, Honorable Kalu, just a moment. I'm glad we're doing this together. Let's listen, because it's a voice vote, okay? Let's listen again and try to see what happened again.
The ayes have it.
The bill, which was initially scheduled for...
Okay, so there we go again. It's a voice vote, Honorable Kalu. So help us understand, how do voice votes work? Is it the volume, or I'm really not clear here?
When you see, it is the number. I hope you're not going to interrupt me again, because I was trying to explain this before. It is not on the pitch. It is not on the loudness of the voice. It is with the number of voice. If you listen to that again, few people who have, special interests, deliberate special interests, sat together, it happens in the house, and they will shout louder than everybody. Does that mean that is the reflection of the voice vote? No. There are some old men there. There are some people there whose voice is not as loud as mine or yours, but they have said yes. So that is the skill that is applied by the leadership of the person that is in section that day. Ability to listen very well. If you listen very well, you see that the number of people who said yes outnumber the few people who shouted no. Shouting no and saying yes, they are not the same thing. They are not the same. If you listen very well, you see the when I mean volume here, I don't mean pitch. I mean the number. The number of people saying yes is more than the few who screamed no. Screaming no is not voice votes. That is not what is used in determining it. So the speaker, and thank God it was the deputy speaker, a very transparent gentleman, a very experienced gentleman, very unbiased and no nonsense personality. He was the one sitting there that day. And if it was no, he would look at the person who sponsored the bill, because at that time, he was not being seen as the Speaker of the House. He was seen as Femi Gbajabiamila. The Deputy Speaker that I know, as a man of integrity, will look into his face and will tell him that the nay have it. But that wasn't the case. I was in the House. Remember, I moved a motion that day. All of us said yes, and the yes had it.
All right, then. We have to thank you very much, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, a member of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for your time and enlightenment this morning.
Thank you.